Good morning. My name is Douglas Griffin. This is my Sunday school class. We're going through the Bible, book by book by book. We started in Genesis a couple years ago, went straight through, and now we're in the book of Exodus. I'm on Exodus chapter 12. Um, God's accomplishing two things again. The children of Israel were supposed to go down to Egypt for 5 years until the famine was done, and then go back. Jacob said, Joseph, I pray that you take me back and that you go back, and because God had promised them Canaan. So it's a willful choice on their part to stay in Egypt. And there was punishment because of that. A new Pharaoh came in who did not know them and then enslaved them. God had to make it so bad that they would leave. They wanted the slavery to stop, but they liked where they were. Goshen, where they were, was some of the most beautiful land, most fertile land in Egypt. Why would they leave? So God is accomplishing two things. He's getting Pharaoh to finally let them go, and he's getting the children of Israel ready to actually go. He's got to prepare them for this because they've been here for a couple hundred years. Now, I say a couple hundred years because I believe the 430 years started when Isaac was born. Abraham, Isaac. He said, your descendants will be strangers in the land and they'll go and then this will happen. And I believe that's when the 430-year period started. One reason I think that is because the Bible talks about only 4 generations being in Egypt, and it lists them. And Moses is the 4th generation of Levites in Egypt. But anyway, that's bogging down in the details. So God sent 9 plagues. Yes, I know there were 10. God sent 9 plagues in order to convince Pharaoh that he needed to let the children of Israel go, because he was actually God of the universe, that all the different gods that they worshipped were not actually gods. There's only one God. That's God's mission. If God has given himself an assignment, it's to convince people he's God. There's only one God. There's just God. Good morning, Susie. There's only one God. And so he's trying to convince people, you worshiping this, you're worshiping that, and he makes sure those things fail. Science is real. There's nothing wrong with science, but every so often scientists get confounded and learn new things. And God's like, yeah, there's stuff that you don't know because the universe is vast, and on and on and on. So he's convincing Pharaoh there's not a God of the sun and of the moon and of the planets. There's just one God. So let me show you. And he's convincing the children of Israel, you need to leave and recalibrate your thinking. And that's what he's about to do here in the 12th chapter of Exodus, is teach them differently. And a lot of times we've been in some situation in our own lives, right? Over and over. And God has to change our thinking. There's a way, we've been in our own Egypt. Situations that we've been in, it could be a job, it could be a neighborhood, it could be a relationship that entrapped us in some way. But we were there in that relationship for so long, or that job, or that place, or that whatever, that situation for so long, that we got used to it. Even though it was slavery to us, it was comfortable. And so God brings us out of the situation. He has to make us want to leave that situation and stay out of it because it's easy to go back to it. And he changes how we think. So he says, let me change your whole perspective of yourself. So that's what he starts to do in Exodus chapter 12. So I'm just going to review really quickly. It seems as though it's going to stay. Yay. Okay. So Exodus chapter 12. Here's what we went over last week. So again, 9 plagues. that were acting as incentive. The 10th plague is judgment. The 10th plague is judgment. And I liken this to taking tests in class. You take a test, you take a test, you take a test, you take a test, and it's always a chance for you to get better. You look at your test scores and go, oh, I need to fix this, or oh, I didn't know that. Let me get better on the next test. You don't have to do that. I've seen many students not do that. Look what the teacher gave me. I didn't give you that. You earned that. These are the questions. I told you what the questions were. You got 5 of them right and 5 of them wrong. Do you learn from it? Do we learn from the test, or do you say, oh, well? But the report card, that's no longer a test. That's judgment. I have now judged, and here's your final score. And so the 10th plague is not a consequence. It's not a test. The 10th plague that's coming up is judgment. I'm sending out, now I am judging you. Okay, so in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1, now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of your year. So he's telling them, I'm just reviewing from last week, that this month of Abib, which is later called Nisan, which is around March, will be the first month as far as festivals are concerned, as far as feasts to me are concerned, as far as our relationship. This is the first month as far as that's concerned, because I'm going to start giving you festivals, feast days, so I could teach you about me. So this one is going to be the first. Exodus 3:5 says, speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, so on the 10th of March, it's like March, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his fathers, a lamb for his household, and if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbors next to his house take it according to the number of the persons, according to each man's need you shall. Make your count of the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Let me take it for the sheep. I'm just zipping through this because I'm just going to explain, because we went through this last year. So starting on the 10th, from the 10th to the 14th, you take a lamb. He's just saying, if you only have a couple people in your house and that's too much food, then share it with your neighbors. But it starts on the 10th, goes to the 14th, that you're supposed to take a lamb without blemish. Exodus 6-8. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill at twilight. So I likened this last week to Jesus. Jesus came into Jerusalem on the 10th. He went to the temple because you're supposed to, what they did, now obviously there were no temples in Egypt at that time, so each person in their household took the lamb home for 10 days and checked it out for 10 days to make sure there was no blemishes on it, that it was sinless, it was spotless. From the 10th to the 14th. Later, when the temple was built, they would take it to the temple and the priest would inspect it. So the priest, from the 10th to the 14th, the priests are inspecting all the lambs. And then on the 14th, it says the whole assembly kills the lamb. So I likened this last week to Jesus, who went to the temple, the 10th, 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th. And he was examined by the priest every day. And on the 14th, the whole assembly of Israel came together and said, crucify him, and he was hung on the cross. So that on the 14th, the whole assembly then designates the lambs that are to be slaughtered, which is what they did for Jesus. And God's just saying, I'm doing this because I'm trying to teach you of your salvation that's coming, so that you'll recognize it when it comes. It says it should be roasted in the fire with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So it had to be roasted in fire, meaning instead of boiling it or causing the meat to come off the bones and the bones to become brittle, and just roast it in the fire. That was a type of judgment that was coming on Jesus, that he was taking our judgment, roasted in the fire, because the fire is meant for us, right? But we get to avoid it because Jesus went through the fire for us. Unleavened bread is a type of sin because the Egyptians are the ones who taught the Israelites about leaven. And so they're saying all the stuff that you got from, don't put any leaven in your bread because that's symbolic of what you got from Egypt. So you're letting go of all your Egypt stuff. You're going to get unleavened bread. And it says, and the bitter herbs. I want you to eat bitter herbs because I want there to be a bad taste in your mouth from Egypt, so that you remember how bad it was. Sometimes somebody has an old boyfriend, old girlfriend or something, and you got to remember how bad they were because you're tempted to go back. Or a job or a situation or a car or whatever. And God purposely wants to leave a bitter taste in your mouth so that you will let that go. Okay, so you want to eat bitter herbs with it. Exit. Now, this week, Exodus chapter 12, verse 9 says, "Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roast it in fire." We already discussed that. He wants it to be a type of judgment. No bones broken. Jesus was on the cross. He was judged. No bone broken. They went to break his bones, and he was already dead. Right? So no bones broken. Its head and its legs, its entrails. I want you to eat the whole thing because it's a full sacrifice. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And this you shall eat it. Now here's the attitude. So he tells you how to fix it. Now he's telling you what your heart attitude should be. There's three things. So you're eating the whole thing. Jesus was a full sacrifice. He says you have to eat it with your belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. So it's going to go and through these, like, why was that so important? Why can't I just eat the meal? Why do I have to eat? Now, the New King James Version translated belt on your waist. It literally says you need to gird your loins. So, and so they're explaining what that means. The Israelis at that time, the Israelites, the children of Israel, and not just them, but most people in the Middle East, when they're just relaxed in their house, they might have on like a caftan sort of thing and nothing else because you're just relaxed. If you were going to go out to work, you had to gird your loins because now you're going to be doing some movement. So you might sit around your house very relaxed, but if you're going to go running or jogging, or you have to gird your loins for the work you're about to be called to do. Okay? So, Jesus gives an example of what's expected because the children of Israel are leaving and God's instructing him, here's what you need to be. Here needs to be your attitude now that I am taking you out of that world into the world I prepared for you. This is how you have to see yourselves, right? No longer slaves, but you do have an assignment. We all have an assignment. We all have a purpose that God has called us to. So you need to gird yourself so that you can do your purpose. There's some purpose that you've been called to. In Luke chapter 17, here's a parable. Verse 7 it says, "Which of you having a servant plowing or tending sheep will say to him when he has come in from the field, 'Come at once and sit down and eat'?" Now, Jesus is saying that you have a servant who has their assignment. So you don't say, "Hey, you don't have to do your assignment. Let that go. Just come in and have supper." He's actually making fun because we're thinking, "Oh, how nice that he's letting the people come inside." No, they don't do that at your job. You don't have to work today. I know you're at work, but don't even work. Oh, you're a teacher? Just sit there and stare at the kids. Just let them run around the classroom. You come have lunch all day. Are you a doctor? Your patient can wait. I know they're on the operating table and you've cut them open, but just come in and, have some sodas and we're going to laugh and talk. And tomorrow you'll get back to them. We don't let people just bleed out on the table. Whatever your job is, you're expected to fulfill it. So Jesus is saying, which of you who has a servant plowing and tending sheep, which is their job that day, will say to him, "Hey, come in, sit down and eat." But will he not neither say to him, "Hey, here's your assignment. Prepare something for my supper. Gird yourself and serve me till I've eaten and drunk," because that's your assignment. You have an assignment, so gird yourself so you can do the assignment you've been given. So gird yourself and serve me till I have eaten and drunk, and afterwards you will eat and drink. So once you've done your assignment, then you can relax, but you don't get to just take the day off. I know I have this auto repair shop and people brought their cars in, but I'm just going to stare at them all day. So no, do your assignment, and then after your assignment's over, then you can sit and eat and drink. In verse 9, he says, does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. Now, I mean, you don't thank people. He's not saying, he's meaning, do you go up to say, "Oh my God, you're a doctor and you actually did doctor things today. Thank you so much." It's like, no, that's what you're supposed to do. He says, you don't act like, this is phenomenal that you actually did your assignment. You've been given an assignment. We've been given an assignment. by God, and he wants us to fulfill our assignment. So likewise, you, when you have done all those things which you were commanded, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what was our duty to do. So he says, when you've been given an assignment, don't say, oh, this is incredible that I've done what I was asked to do. Like, no, that should be normal to you. That's what you're supposed to do. You've gone to a fast food place or someone and waited for people to wait on you and say, why are they just staring at me? I've been standing at this counter. Why won't somebody come over and help me? Why are the employees sitting over there talking and drinking sodas? Hello, give me service. And when they finally show up, yeah, what do you want? It's like, wait a minute. You're employed to do that today. You should go home if you're not ready to do your job today. But I'm not supposed to say, oh my God, you actually came to my table and took my order. I can't believe it. Jesus is saying, you don't say that to the person. Like, we've been given an assignment, so gird yourself so that you can do your assignment. And then afterwards, after you've completed your assignment, then everybody can applaud and say, yeah, but no one's going to be shocked that you're doing what you've been asked to do. And Jesus is saying this to the disciples because he's given them an assignment to go out and preach, etc. And saying you got to look at that as your job, not some grace you've given to God. Oh Lord, look today, I did you a favor, Lord, and actually did something you asked me to do. God's like, no, I did you a favor, let you breathe today. And so you need to go out and whatever that purpose is that I've given you for the day. Doesn't have the same purpose. We fulfill it. Luke chapter 12, verse 35. Another parable. He said, let your waist be girded. Means put on your belt. That's that same, let your loins be, they changed it to waist instead of loins. But put on your big boy underwear and let's go. Let your waist be girded and your lamps burning, and yourselves be like men who wait for their master when he will turn from the wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. So, your master's gone off and gotten married. He's about to come back. Be ready to do what you've been asked to do. Have your belt on your waist. Don't be sitting around in your caftan like, oh wait, hold on, wait, I gotta get dressed. Hold on, like So be ready, he says, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, will find watching. Assuredly, I say to you that he will gird himself and have them sit down to eat, and will come and serve them. So he says, here's your reward. You've been doing what you've been asked to do. So when the master comes home and finds that you have done what you're supposed to do, then he will have you sit down and he'll come and serve you because he found you actually doing what you're supposed to do. Jesus is warning the disciples because I am going to be leaving. I'm going to get on the cross. You're not going to see me for a while, 3 days and 3 nights. And when I come back, I need to find that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Now, of course, he came back and the disciples had locked themselves in their room and weren't doing nothing. And so he's warning them, you're not going to get your reward unless you're doing. I don't need to be here every second for you to do, your assignment. All right. So he says, he will come and serve them. And if he should come in the second watch or come in the third watch and find them so blessed are those servants. So whatever time he comes, at 3 a.m, at 6 a.m, at 9 a.m, whatever time he comes, it's great if you're doing what you're supposed to do. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. So if you knew when the thief was going to show up, you'd be there. But we don't know when the master's going to show up, right? We don't know. So just be doing your assignments. Don't be the person, well, they're not going to be here till 12, so I'm not going to start my job until 12. The boss, he comes in and checks on us at 1. So let's just slough off and not do our job. And then at 5 minutes to 1, we'll just get busy and act like, and people have done that, right? God's like, don't do that. I see you. Please don't do that. Please be doing what I've asked you to do. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming in an hour you do not expect. And Peter says to him, Lord, do you speak this parable only to us or to all people? So Peter's like mad, like, Are you telling us that we have to, or does everybody have to be doing their assignment? Does Jesus answer him? No. Because it's like, what difference does it make if it's, because that's a Peter thing, right? When Jesus told Peter, feed my sheep, he looked over at John. What about him? How, you haven't told him nothing. And Jesus said, if he lives until he's 90 years old, what's that to you? His assignment is not your business. You do what you're supposed to be doing. But so here's Peter again. Well, what, you just yelling at us, or you telling everybody this? Jesus says, and the Lord said, who then is that faithful and wise steward? He doesn't say, yes, I'm talking to you. He just goes on like Peter didn't say anything. Who then is the faithful and wise steward whom his master will make ruler over his household to give them their portion of food in due season? Who's the person that God's going to promote? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he will make him ruler over all that he has. So I'm not going to answer your question if I'm talking to you or to everybody else. I'm just telling you the person who gets rewarded is the person who's doing his assignment. That's what girding your waist stands for. You have some sort of purpose, some sort of assignment that God, whatever that is, maybe you just make hot chocolate for the Girl Scouts. That's fine. Whatever your assignment is, it doesn't have to be some incredible thing. But there's a way that we're supposed to show God's love. Whatever our assignment is, God says, please gird up your belt and do it. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 29. Then he said to Gehazi, so this is Elijah talking to Gehazi, his servant, when he's found out that this boy is sick. He says to Gehazi, get yourself ready and take my staff in your hand. Well, it says get yourself ready. It should say gird up your loins. But they think you're not going to know what gird up your loins means. So they just gave a, get yourself ready. Gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and be on your way. So there's the waist belt and then there is the staff. If you meet anyone, do not greet him. If anyone greets you, do not answer him, but lay my staff on the face of the child. So the staff is an extension of God, right? Your waist belt is you getting yourself ready to do your assignment, and now he's about to talk about the staff. So we're going to get that in a minute, right? But he says, don't talk to anybody. Do what I asked you to do. Now, so I want you to gird your loins or have on your waist belt, so know what your assignment is, right? Then have your sandals on your feet. So the sandals represent, if we look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 14, it says, stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, right? So if you want to stand against the devil, gird your waist with the truth. Know what the truth is. Know what your assignment is and know how to withstand the devil. Having put on the breastplate of righteousness so the devil can't accuse you. You're not righteous. You're going to hell. Nope. I've got on Jesus' breastplate. So yes, you can't get me that way. And having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Put on your sandals with spreading of it. You're going to go out and spread. So you can gird your loins and your assignment may be at home, right? However, sandals means I'm going to send you out. So whatever your assignment is, it involves making contact with other people. And you're going to be proclaiming the good news. This comes from Isaiah chapter 52, verse 7. Paul is quoting this verse. He says, how beautiful upon the mountain are the feet of him who brings good news. So that person who's running towards us is bringing us the good news. He's bringing us a word from God. And it's just beautiful to see him who proclaims peace, who brings glad tidings of good things, who proclaims salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns. So this person is bringing us a message from God. And Paul says, once you gird up your waist, put on your breastplate, have your feet prepared to go and spread this good news. So he's telling, this is how I want you to eat. And like, why can't I just eat it, Jesus? Why can't, Lord God, why can't I just eat the food? Why do I have to? As a result of this Passover and you being saved and this judgment passing over you, you've got to have your waist belt on, ready to do your assignments. You got to have your sandals on, knowing that you're going to be traveling, going out, spreading the word of what God has done for you to other people, and your staff in your hand. Now, I'm sorry, when I say spreading what God has done for you to other people, that doesn't mean that every day you have to go out and witness to people and stand in the corner I'm just saying, whatever it is that God's going to do for you, you're a living witness of it in whatever way that comes out of you, whatever way your light is shining to other people. God is doing whatever He's doing for you so that other people can see it. And have your staff in your hand, your belt, your sandals, and your staff. The staff is symbolic of God's guidance, right? It's not, you don't have to be a Bible scholar to figure that out. In Psalms chapter 23, 23rd Psalm, verse 4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You're my shepherd. And the staff, as long as I see that staff going, I'm going to follow that staff. The sheep are trained to follow the staff. So that's symbolic of God's guidance. So you have to know your assignment, be ready to do whatever God's asked you to do. You got to know that it's for other people, but you have to also put yourself in a position where you're going to follow after God and not after your own mind and how you think things should go. But every day you wake up and saying, God, show me, guide me, lead me wherever it is that you want me to do today. And again, that's not necessarily going to Uganda and helping children. Whatever that is, He's just leading you to go to the beach and meditate on God. That's whatever. You're following His guidance. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 21. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning, it says, on the top of his staff. Now, if you go, so at the end of his life, he was still holding onto his staff. I'm just going to read this to you. In Genesis chapter 47, verse 31, they don't translate it leaning on his staff. In Genesis 47:31 says, then he said, swear to me. So Jacob is talking to Joseph, his son, and swear to me that you're going to take me back and bury me in Canaan, bury me in the promised land. And he swore to him, yes, I'm going to do that. So Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed, on the top of his bed. Now, there's no thing that says of his bed there. It just says on the top. The Septuagint, what's the Septuagint? They got 70 Greek Jewish scholars, Jewish scholars, and they translated the Hebrew Testament into Greek, and they translated it top of his staff, but our translators translated top of the bed. But anyway, it's staff. It should have been staff. So, thank you. Now, Jacob is holding on to his staff to the very end of his life. Here's Jacob. From the very first moment God sent him out, when he messed up and he stole his brother's birthright, which he did not do, we don't have to steal anything that belongs to us. We don't have to steal it. God had already given it to Jacob, but Jacob thought, I've got to steal, I got to make it happen. And sometimes we think we have to make God's thing happen. God's like, you can't stop it from happening. They can't stop. You don't have to make it happen. If I tell you to do something, that's fine. But if I haven't told you to do anything, just stand still and let me see how I work it out. But Jacob couldn't do that. So he steals his brother's birthright. And then his parents said, you better get out of here because she's going to kill you. We can't stop him. And all he's got is his staff. So he's left. He's gone for 20 years. And now he's on his way back home. And he's about to meet his brother again. After 20 years, the brother who would threaten to kill him. So he's scared. In Genesis chapter 32, verse 7, it says, so Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him. So he's bringing back, at this point, he's got 11 kids. He doesn't, the 12th one, who was Benjamin, hadn't been born yet. Got 11 kids, 4 wives, and just an army of servants. So he divides them into 2 camps. So he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 companies. And he said, if Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the other company which is left will escape. So I'm putting you out as a decoy. So if he attacks, then we'll hear you screaming, help me, and then we can run. And I'm going to do the same thing with my kids. I'm going to divide them up into 4 groups. The kids I don't like the most, I'm going to put them in front, and the next set of kids, and then I'm here with Joseph. But I don't want you to take this as a bad thing on Joseph, but I'm saving his life, and I'm putting your lives in danger. And he was so confused later. Why do they hate Joseph? I don't understand it. Anyway, so this is Jacob, because this is the only way he knows to fight. He's not a fighter. So then Jacob said, so he's praying, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, The Lord who said to me, return to your country and to your family. So I was gone for 20 years and you came to me and said, come back. So he's saying, now you're the one that said, come back, so you got to help me. He said, return to your country and your family and I will deal with you. That God, you said return and I will deal with you. He says, I'm not worthy of the least of all the mercy and of all the truth which you have shown your servant. For I crossed over the Jordan with my staff. He said, that's all I had when I left home and crossed over the Jordan and went up to Syria and stayed there for 20 years. All I had was my staff. And that's all I have really coming back, even though I'm ignoring all my children and all that stuff. He said, no. He says, I crossed over just with my staff. And now I've actually become two companies. I've actually grown. But all I had was my staff. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him lest he come and attack me and the mother with the children. I'm so, right? So he's scared. Please don't let this man attack me. And God's not going to send you. Well, okay. Anyway, so at the end of his life, all he's got is his staff. At the beginning, all he had was his staff. And that was symbolic of God leading him, of God keeping his word. So he's saying to the children of Israel, when you eat this Passover, have your waist belt on. So you're ready to work and do the assignment I've given you, whatever that assignment is. You're filling your purpose. Have your sandals on because know that it will be involving you interacting ultimately with other people. There's travel involved. I didn't bless you just for you. I blessed you so that in some way you can pass that blessing on. But have your staff in your hand because that's me guiding you. That's me being your shepherd. So you're still going to follow after me. That's the attitude, which is a new attitude you're going to have as you leave Egypt because you've been Egyptians all this time. You've adapted their culture, you've adapted their language, you've adapted their ways, and I've got to reprogram you to become my servant. And God has to do that always. When He takes us out of some situation, He begins the reprogramming. So, in chapter 12, verse 11, so you shall eat it in haste. It's the Lord's Passover. This is the first time He uses that word. So He explained, we're calling it a Passover. And the image that He uses when He uses this word is that bird who's flying over and protecting their nest, or let's say there's some food that he's got his eye on and other animals want to come up and take it. And so he's shooing them away, right? So there's two images that He used for this word Passover. In Isaiah chapter 31, verse 5, it says, like birds flying about, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem, defending, and He will also deliver it. Passing over, He will preserve it. So that word, He's like that bird is passing over to defend that territory, to protect it, to preserve it, and to deliver you. I'm going to do all those things. So just picture me passing over you to protect you, like the way you've seen birds protect their food or protect their young. That's me passing over. So this is how I want you to eat it, because I'm about to finally fulfill what I said I was going to do 430 years ago. Exodus 12, chapter 12, verse 13. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. So He is finally sending out judgment, and God is an equal opportunity judger. Like the sun, like the Bible says, the sun just shines in everybody, or the rain rains in everybody. It's not like it's raining in the house next door. Your house is fine, and it's raining He's sending out judgment. So the only way to avoid it is to have this blood over your household. Then the judgment will come to you. Because judgment is going out, like the rays of the sun. It's going out. But you can thoroughly avoid. I tried to get Pharaoh to avoid the judgment all this time. And now I am sending out judgment on the firstborn, just like my firstborn will be judged. And I told Pharaoh that Israel is my firstborn. Israel represents me. So I am sending, because that firstborn son, that oldest child, was the replica of the dad in those days in their heads. So that person represents me, and I'm sending my replica to you. That's why God sent Jesus to us. I'm inside of Him, and I'm sending Him to you. He's my representative. So I'm going to kill all the firstborn. I'm sending out judgment on the firstborn. And if you're covered, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. Whether it's man, beast, and all the gods. Again, why the beast? Why the animals? Because they worshiped the animals. They felt that those animals were gods. So I need to show them there's only one God. Stop worshiping these other things. And anything in your life that you're worshiping, God ultimately brings it down. Anything that's not Him, He makes sure that it falls apart. Because you're ascribing too much to that thing or that person and not enough to God. So He's got to show you, I'm the Lord. That's not the Lord. Quit worshiping it. Now, the blood shall be a sign for you on your houses, where you are. And when I see the blood, I'll pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 32, verses 25 to 30 to 26 says, now, when Moses saw that the people were unrestrained, I'm sorry. So this is a type of, I'm thinking, why did I put that scripture? So this is the type of judgment. So God's sending out judgment, but it's the blood that removes you from it. And God, again, always gives us a choice. Always gives a choice. So God's not just judging people. I had no idea. What a cruel God that He's sending people there. No, warned you 49 times. And so that's on us. For example, this was an example in Exodus chapter 32, verse 25. It says, now when Moses saw that the people were unrestrained, so Moses is coming down with the Ten Commandments. He's coming down and he's hearing everybody just shouting and dancing and laughing and being crazy. And you can tell, oh, that's not good what I'm hearing. It's like a parent leaving the house and then coming back and hearing this party going on. So, I should not be hearing a party in my house. That's not going to be good. It says, for Aaron had not restrained them to their shame among their enemies. To their shame among their enemies. So the enemies eventually hear about how they were carrying on, and then these people are just crazy. Why should we respect them? Then Moses stood in the entrance of the camp and said, whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me. So they have a choice at this point. Many of the leaders said, no, I'm not on Moses' side. I want to go back to Egypt with those gods. And this is stupid. And why are we here? And again, that's why I'm saying God had to work on the people to get them to want to leave, because they quickly wanted to go back. So He had to make it so terrible. And that's, again, God will make conditions so terrible in your life somewhere so that you want to leave that bad situation. But He knows that you're going to want to come back. So He wants to leave a bitter taste in your mouth so you think, no, I don't want to go. I remember how bad that was, right? So He gives them a choice. If you're on the Lord's side, come on this side. And like, no. It says all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to Him. All the sons of Levi, and they eventually were rewarded for that. God made them priests because He knew that they would stick to what God was saying and put God above all others, right? But the others said no. God always gives a choice. So I gave Pharaoh a choice, and I'm sending out the judgment that I promised. Exodus chapter 12, verse 14 through 15. So this day shall be to you a memorial. I want you to remember what happens on this day. And they forgot like a month later. A month later, they were ready to go back to Egypt. So I want you to practice, remember these things. And that's how we are. We get so panicked, we forget what God just did. We forget what God told us 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, when we were desperate. Lord, I promise if you just help me, every day I will. And then once God rescues you, you forget that, right? It says, so this day shall be a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generation. So you remember, I'm God and there's no other gods. And they so quickly ran into other nations and started worshiping those gods. Like they just never learned. Bless their hearts. Anyway, so I want you to keep it as a memorial throughout the generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance, and keep reminding yourself of what I did. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses, for whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh, that person shall be cut off from Israel. So leaven is a type of sin and a type of Egypt in your life. I want you to know leaven. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8. Paul says, therefore let us keep this feast, but not with the old leaven. So what's the old leaven that Paul's talking about? He says, not with the leaven of malice and wickedness. Get all that stuff out, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So anything that is anti-God, he's saying, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of it. When we keep this feast, let's remind ourselves of what God wants us to do and not what we want ourselves. Exodus chapter 14, verse 16. On the first day, there should be a holy convocation. On the 14th, that's when this began. And I want to end by going over a couple things. But so the Passover happens on the 14th, and that's also the first day of the festival of unleavened bread. It starts on the 14th. So there's the night and then the day. Remember that their days go. It's night first and then day. So it's night and day. In our minds, we go day, night. They go night, day. So the night of the 14th and then the next day is still the 14th. You slaughter the lamb, and before 6 p.m., you have your first meal with that lamb. So, like at 4 p.m., at 4:30, at 5, you're having that meal in the evening, and that's the first day of unleavened bread. This is when Jesus, he was led to the temple, put on the cross on the 14th. They took him off before evening, right? Because it was now going to be the 15th. So before we eat our meal at 5 o'clock, we got to have him off the cross. John chapter 19, verse 30. So when Jesus had received the sour wine, the bitter, right, he said, "It is finished." It's not 6 o'clock yet. And bowing his head, he gave up the spirit. Therefore, because it was the preparation day, because on the 14th, during the day, again, there's night and then day. Previous night, he was led before Pilate. On that day, all the lambs are being slaughtered during the day. Their night has already happened. During the day, it's preparation day. And then by 5 o'clock, all the lambs are slaughtered. They're being cooked, and they're about to have their meal at 5. So because it was preparation day, that the body should not remain on the cross on the Sabbath. Now, this doesn't mean that the Saturday Sabbath. This is like Wednesday. But he told them the first day, the 14th, is like a Sabbath. Treat that like a Sabbath. For the Sabbath was a high day. The Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away. So let's break all the legs of these people. These three, there's three. And of course, they didn't have to break Jesus' leg. But so they can be taken away. So by 5 o'clock, we can be home eating our meal. Matthew chapter 12, verse 40. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So it's got to be 3 days and 3 nights. You've got the day of the 14th, night of the 15th. Day of the 15th, night of the 15th. Day of the 16th, night of the 17th. So the 14th, he's not in the heart of the earth, right? He doesn't die until the 14th. So you've got 15, 16, 17, day 15, 16, 17. So that's 3 days and 3 nights. 14th doesn't count because that's when he's just on the cross. 15, 16, 17, 15, 16, 17. So the 17th is when everything happens. I just want you to remember that. I'll explain why in a second. Now, the first day of the week, which is that Sunday. So we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday. So they can't visit Jesus on the Sabbath. That Saturday, she has to wait till Sunday, the first day of the week. Saturday's the seventh day. It says, now on the first day of the week, this is John chapter 20, verse 1. Now the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb early while it was still dark and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. So Saturday, what we would call Saturday night is really Sunday night because it goes night and then day. So once the Sabbath was over at 6 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m., now it's Sunday at 6:01. It's Sunday. It's the first day of the week. So she says she didn't even wait till light. Sometime that night, before midnight or after midnight or 2 in the morning, she went to the tomb because, hey, I can finally go. It's Sunday now. I can finally go. She didn't even wait till light so she can go and prepare his body and do all these things that she wasn't allowed to do before. Because they took him off in the middle of the convocation and just laid him in a tomb. And it's like, oh, she's been waiting all this time to get to him. Now, the reason I'm bringing up 15, 16, 17, Exodus chapter 14, let me just finish this part. Verse 16 says, on the seventh day there should be a holy convocation. So from the 14th and on the 21st, those are going to be both Sabbaths, right? It says no manner of work should be done on them. Don't do anything. That's why they're trying to get Jesus off that cross because we can't do anything. We're done. No work should be done on them, but that which everyone must eat, that only may be prepared by you. So you got to eat yourself. So you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on the same day I will have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. So I'll explain that in a second. Therefore, you shall observe this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance. I just want to finish this and then explain. Exodus chapter 14, verse 18. So in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread. By 5 o'clock, by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock at the evening, that's when you eat the unleavened bread before the 15th, because the 15th starts at 6:01, right? For 7 days no leaven shall be found in your houses, since whoever eats what is leavened, that same person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Whether he's a stranger or native of the land, you shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwellings you shall eat just unleavened bread. So sin is dealt with. Sin is God's way. That's what leaven is a type of. So that you understand the leaven is taken away on the 14th. And that's what Jesus did on the cross on the 14th. Sweep sin away, right? Sin is no longer a problem. Sin is no longer conquering us. Sin is no longer the reason we're going to go to hell. Now we have the choice of the blood of Jesus over us. That's what determines if you go to hell or not. Just, is the blood over me? Okay, then judgment's going to pass over me. He dealt with sin. I just want to put this picture in your mind. You got the 14th, 15th, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So on the 14th, Jesus on the cross, the price is paid. They take him off the cross. So by 5 o'clock, they could be eating in the evening their supper. Now at 6:01, it's now the 15th. That night in Egypt, at midnight on the 15th, that's when the angel of death went around. On the next day of the 15th, that's when Pharaoh told them, get out. So they leave on the 15th. The Passover was on the 14th. They leave on the 15th. That night, which is really the 16th, because remember it goes night and day, they camp at Sukkoth. On the day of the 16th, Pharaoh says, we got to get them. They're lost. They went the wrong direction. And we're going to be seeing this in the next chapters. So they must be lost. Ha, ha, ha. And even though God had just done all this stuff, it's like, I'll get God back. I'm going to destroy his people out in the wilderness. So on the 16th, he comes after them. And that night, which is really the 17th, because it goes night, day, the children of Israel are at the Red Sea and they camp there. And Pharaoh's men are right behind them. And all night, God has this cloud in between them. So Pharaoh's people cannot see them. On Pharaoh's side, it's a dark, cloudy, and on their side, it's fire. So they're lit. They can see anything coming toward them. On the Israelite side, they can see anything coming toward them. But on the other side, they can't see nothing, right? On the day of the 17th, that's when they cross over. So he actually liberates them on the 17th. And they cross over into the promised land on the 17th. Jesus is resurrected on the 17th. And so God is having everything happen precisely so that if they study all of this, then when Jesus shows up and says, I'm going to the cross and I'm going to shed my blood, and then 3 days later I'm going to rise, people go, oh, that coincides with, this is exactly this picture you've been painting for 700 years that we should have been studying. So we are blamed if we miss this, because God showed us how all this was going to work, and then you're showing up saying, I'm the Lamb, and I'm going to rise, and that's me. And the thing that God has had you study every single year, really since 1200, it's really been 1200 years, but they stopped doing it for 500, but that's another question. This is now being fulfilled. He would say, today is the scriptures fulfilled in your ears. Today the scriptures, I'm doing it. I'm the living testimony right in front of you. So you have no excuse. That's why I kept saying you're without excuse. Sorry. So God is telling them exactly how to eat this Passover, what it represents, and how they should look at it, what their attitude should be. Same for us, right? We have to have our loins girded. We have to be ready to do whatever the thing that God is, whatever that purpose is that God has for us. With that servant who should be doing what we're supposed to be doing, whatever that is. It's different for everybody. but know that it will bless someone, that whatever God is, it's for other people. It's not just for us. It somehow will be reaching out. You'll touch other lives with it, as long as you're led by that staff, as long as you are being led by God and keeping him in front of you, then you know that he's always leading you to the right places, into the green pastures, by the still waters, wherever he wants you to go, and that he will be protecting you. And you can lean on that staff. We can lean on it like Jacob did, and know at the end of our lives, I was led by that staff the whole time. I let God lead me, and I can die in peace, knowing that I was doing what I was designed to do. Okay, so we will continue more with Exodus chapter 12 and go on as God continues to explain this Passover and what it means and how it's all going to work. And then we interpret that and see what does that mean for our lives. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to end there. And on Wednesdays, uh, we are like frogs in a kettle. Yes. On Wednesdays, we're in John chapters. I don't know what John chapter. We're about to start John chapter 9. That's right, with the blind man. Boy, that's big. Okay, so I'll see you on Wednesday. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and God bless.